You've been taught to move faster, to do more, to fill the silence with noise, so you never have to hear it speak. From the moment you woke this morning, the world rushed to press itself into your mind. Notifications, conversations, obligations, a symphony of distractions, all orchestrated to keep you from noticing the one thing that has been whispering to you beneath it all: stillness. There is a great illusion woven through modern life, a mirage so common it's rarely questioned, that fulfillment lies somewhere outside of you, hidden in motion, masked by ambition, revealed only through effort. But the Hermetic teachings, preserved by the ancient initiates and echoed by the voice of Thoth, remind us of a deeper truth: all begins within. The mind is not a servant to the external. It is the origin of reality itself. To know this is to begin remembering. To listen inwardly is to awaken. In a world that worships the loud, the busy, the productive sacred silence can feel like an absence. But silence is not the lack of sound. It is the presence of Source. In silence, the universal mind speaks in symbols and sensation, in quiet awareness rather than argument. It is the sacred field where your soul remembers who it is beyond identity, beyond thought, beyond time. Imagine the surface of a still lake. When winds cease and ripples settle, the lake becomes a perfect mirror. In its clarity, it reflects not just the sky above, but the depths below. Your consciousness is this lake, and silence is the calm that reveals both the heavens and the hidden. But as long as the waters are stirred by relentless thought and external noise, the mirror cannot reflect truth, it distorts. Mentalism, the first Hermetic principle, teaches that all is mind. The universe is mental. This means that your reality is not something you observe. It is something you participate in through the lens of consciousness. But how can you wield this creative power if your mind is constantly reacting, defending, predicting? It is only in stillness that the inner world begins to stabilize, align, and become lucid. You do not find clarity by accumulating more thoughts. You find it by entering the space between them. There is a reason the ancients retreated to deserts and mountaintops, not to escape life, but to strip away the noise of illusion. Not all silence must be geographical. The most profound stillness is not around you, but within you. Have you tasted it? That moment before sleep, when the mind dissolves and something vast yet intimate remains. That is the temple of truth. Consider a woman sitting at the ocean's edge. She came to the shore to escape heartbreak, to grieve in solitude. For days, she says nothing, only watches the tide. She does not know it, but she is healing not by analyzing the pain, not by performing some ritual, but by surrendering to the rhythm that is older than her sorrow. The silence of the sea becomes a medicine that no word could offer. Her breath begins to synchronize with the waves, and slowly, without knowing, how her spirit begins to rise. This is the mystery of sacred stillness. It does not ask you to understand, only to trust. It does not demand your effort, only your presence. In this silence, you are not empty. You are full of the divine. The space you feared to enter is where your true voice waits to be remembered. So, how do we begin? Not by seeking silence, but by creating space for it. turn off the screen. Step into nature. Breathe as if each breath is a prayer. Let the inner chatter come and go, like wind through leaves, but do not follow it. Sit as the watcher. Rest as the witness. This is not meditation for achievement. It is stillness as a sacred returning. Ask yourself, gently, what do I hear beneath my thoughts? What waits for me in the stillness I've long ignored? In the pause between words, in the breath between moments, there is an entrance to the divine. Do not fear the silence. It is the language of the soul. There is a voice beneath all thought. It does not shout. It does not persuade. It waits. Patient as the stars, subtle as mist at dawn. When you become still enough to feel its presence, you begin to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. This voice is not yours alone. It is the murmur of the universal mind, the field of infinite intelligence from which all things arise. According to the principle of mentalism, all that you see, touch, experience, or imagine exists within this mind. The galaxies your heartbeat, a falling leaf, they all bloom from the same source. You are not separate from this mind. You are one of its expressions. But to hear it, you must go deeper than the stream of surface thoughts that carry you from hour to hour. Modern life confuses noise with knowledge. It praises quick answers, constant commentary, perpetual stimulation. But this voice, the one that guides not just you, but stars and atoms, has no need for speed. It unfolds like a lotus in the dark petal by petal. When the soil of your awareness becomes quiet and receptive. The Hermetic teachings tell us that the universe is mental in nature, which means creation itself is an act of thought. But not the scattered reactive thinking that fills most minds. Rather, it is born of focused, spacious, creative awareness, the kind cultivated in stillness. Every artist, mystic, and philosopher has touched this sacred ground, the space before, formed the silence before song. Have you noticed how your clearest insights arise, not when you try harder, but when you let go? When you're walking alone at dusk, or lying in bed with your heart open, or staring out a train window with no destination in mind, that's when something speaks. Not in words, but in knowing. It is as if a veil lifts and you briefly stand on sacred ground. This is not magic, it is alignment. When the noise of ego recedes, the deeper architecture of consciousness begins to emerge. And in that space, new thoughts, new visions, and new wisdom rise not from the conditioned mind, but from the universal one. Consider a man who has spent years chasing success. He's built a life of accolades, wealth, and influence, yet something feels hollow. One night, he finds himself in the stillness of his own home, no distractions to numb the ache. In that silence, memories rise. So do regrets. And eventually, after tears and restless pacing, something else arrives: clarity. He realizes he's been building his life outward, not inward. That insight born from silence becomes the first stone of a new foundation. Silence is not passive. It is the most active teacher when you know how to listen. It reveals not just what you are, but what you are not. It clears the fog of false identity, gently dismantling the stories you inherited and internalized. I must be productive to be worthy. I must be liked to be loved. I must always be doing. In stillness, such illusions begin to unravel, because the deeper self has no need for them. How do we commune with this universal mind? Not by striving to hear it, but by becoming quiet enough to receive it. Begin with breath. Let each inhale remind you that you are alive. Let each exhale soften the armor around your thoughts. Then sit, not to get somewhere, but to arrive fully here. Allow awareness to spread through your body as if light were gently filling every cell. You don't need to silence your thoughts. You only need to disidentify with them. Watch them like clouds. Let the sky remain vast. Ask yourself gently, what would I hear if I stopped trying to speak? What would guide me if I stopped seeking control? You are not empty in your silence. You are most full. It is the still pool that reflects the stars, the hollow flute through which spirit sings the open field where truth plants its seeds. The universal mind is always here. You do not need to reach for it. You need only become still enough to let it rise within you. Stillness is often mistaken for void, but it is not absence. It is origin. It is the rhythm beneath rhythm, the hum beneath matter, the pulse that moves through all things, even when the world seems silent. This is the paradox of silence. What appears as nothing is everything. What feels empty is full. The wise do not fear this space. They enter it again and again as one returns to sacred ground. The Hermetic principle of vibration reminds us that nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. Even in what we call stillness, there is a subtle frequency, a gentle oscillation of being. Atoms do not freeze. Thoughts do not stop. The universe is in a state of constant becoming. But within this movement, there are layers. There is the surface, loud, quick reactive, and there is the depth, slow and resonant, like the sound of a deep bell. Stillness is the practice of tuning to that depth. When you sit in silence, you are not doing nothing. You are calibrating your being to the deeper rhythm of life. Like a musician tuning her instrument, you are bringing yourself into harmony with the cosmic scale. And once attuned, you begin to sense the subtle correspondences between your inner state and the world around you. As within, so without. Consider the principle of correspondence, as above, so below. As within, so without. This is not a poetic flourish. It is a profound law of alignment. Your outer world reflects your inner frequency. Chaos within begets chaos without. Peace within births peace around you. Stillness then becomes a sacred technology for creation. When you become quiet, your life begins to echo that stillness. Imagine a young man overwhelmed by anxiety. He feels scattered, burdened by choices, unsure of his direction. One evening, instead of reaching for a distraction, he lights a candle and simply sits. He breathes. He listens. At first, all he hears is the noise of his own fear. But he does not run. He stays, and something shifts. The fear begins to unravel, revealing a quiet longing beneath it, a longing for presence, for connection, for truth. In that stillness, clarity dawns. He sees not the 10,000 options, but the one true next step. Not all the answers, but the wisdom to listen. This is the alchemy of stillness. It transforms confusion into clarity, noise into knowing. Not by adding, but by subtracting. It is the sculptor's art, removing what is not essential to reveal what already lives within the stone. In your own life, where do you notice misalignment? Perhaps your days are filled with action, but devoid of meaning. Or perhaps you feel a subtle dissonance, as if something within you is out of tune with the rest. These are invitations. Stillness is not a luxury, it is the medicine. 5 minutes in silence each day, with sincere intention, can begin to realign your field. Begin not by seeking visions, but by being fully with what is. Let your breath be your anchor. Let the silence be your teacher. You don't need mantras or complex rituals, though they can serve. What you need is sincerity, a willingness to sit with yourself just as you are, without the need to fix or flee. This is not passive, it is brave. To sit in silence is to stand in your own presence and say, I am here, I am listening. Eventually, you'll begin to notice the subtle. A thought pattern loosens. An old grief rises, then softens. A new idea flickers at the edge of awareness. These are the sacred movements of stillness. You are not stuck, you are stirring, but in a deeper way, beneath the level of doing, into the realm of being. Ask yourself, what does my inner world vibrate with right now? And what would it feel like to attune myself to peace, to truth, to the slow rhythm of the real? Stillness does not end the storm. It teaches you to find your center within it. And from that center, new creations emerge aligned, clear, harmonious. You are not here to be carried by chaos. You are here to be the calm within it. The world often praises force, the pushing, the striving, the conquering of obstacles. We are taught that to succeed, we must assert, dominate, control. Yet the deepest power you possess is not found in force, but in surrender. Not in action for its own sake, but in aligned receptivity. This is the paradox at the heart of stillness. When you stop trying to control life, you begin to move with it. And it is then that the universe moves through you. Stillness is not weakness. It is the throne of true power. It is not idleness, but intention without friction. The ancient Hermetic alchemists knew this well. They spoke not of grabbing reality by the reins, but of harmonizing with its laws, of entering the current rather than swimming against it. The principle of polarity teaches us that all truths are half-truths that extremes meet, and that power often hides in its apparent opposite. Thus, surrender becomes not defeat, but transformation. The ego resists this. It wants certainty, control validation. It whispers, if I stop, I will fall. If I let go, I will disappear. But this is the illusion. What disappears in stillness is not you. It is who you are not. And what remains is deeper, older, truer. In letting go of control, you gain access to a current far stronger than your personal will, the flow of the universal mind itself. Imagine a woman standing in a river, trying to walk upstream. The water resists her, pushes her back. She exerts herself, grows tired, questions her path. Then, after long struggle, she turns. And the moment she aligns with the current, everything changes. The effort melts. The river carries her not as a victim, but as a participant in its direction. She is not passive, she is surrendered. This is stillness. This is alignment. In your own life, where are you pushing against the current? Where have you mistaken control for clarity, force for freedom? Often, the greatest healing begins not with doing more, but with ceasing to resist what already is. Not all storms are meant to be fought. Some are meant to be listened to, learned from, and passed through. To practice stillness is to become porous to life. It is to open your senses not just to what is loud and obvious, but to what is subtle, symbolic, sacred. It is to become the chalice rather than the hammer. And in doing so, you discover that the divine does not require your domination. It requires your cooperation. This is the feminine side of power, though it lives in all beings regardless of gender. It is the receptive, intuitive, lunar current that knows by feeling, trusts, by sensing, moves, by yielding. The Hermetic path honors this current as equal to the solar active principle. Together, they form the sacred union from which all creation arises. In stillness, this union becomes internalized. You begin to live as both vessel and flame, both sky and root. Let this become practical. When confusion rises, do not rush to solve it. Sit. Let the question breathe. Let it echo in your silence, and then wait. Not with impatience, but with sacred anticipation. Truth, when allowed space, arrives like a soft wind, not as noise, but as knowing. You may not receive answers in words, but in felt sense, in synchronicity, in clarity that has no explanation. This is spiritual maturity, not needing constant validation, not grasping for control, but living in communion with the larger rhythm of existence. Let your life be a question, not a conclusion. Let your mind be a garden, not a battlefield. Ask yourself now, what part of me is still gripping the reins? And what would happen if I let go, not into chaos, but into trust? Stillness is not absence of motion. It is motion in its purest form, untainted by fear, unclouded by ego. It is the gentle return to your original frequency, the one you had before the world taught you to tighten, strive, protect. In this space, the universe begins to meet you, and you realize surrender was never loss. It was the beginning of true alignment. There is a place within you that has never moved, never aged, never feared. It does not rise and fall with your emotions. It does not depend on your achievements or mistakes. It is your inner temple, the sanctuary beyond all seeking, and it is always found in silence. When you rest in sacred stillness, you do not visit this temple. You become it. You are not entering a spiritual practice. You are remembering your spiritual nature. This is not something you earn. It is something you realize. The eternal self, hidden behind the veils of personality, speaks not in performance, but in presence. It waits for you to stop, to listen, to come home. Stillness is the final initiator. not because it is dramatic, but because it is subtle. It does not seduce the mind, it awakens the soul. And in its embrace, the last illusions begin to dissolve. You begin to see that all your becoming was in truth a return, that the journey through thought, desire, and fear was a spiral leading you back to the center. The Hermetic path is not about transcendence in the sense of escape. It is about integration. The principle of cause and effect reminds us that all things unfold from mind, and that conscious alignment with this law allows us to step out of blind reaction into conscious creation. But creation is not always movement. It is also stillness. Like the pause between notes that gives music its meaning, or the blank canvas that waits for the first brushstroke, silence is not inaction. It is intention in its most potent form. To live as an alchemist of the spirit is to carry this silence with you, not just in meditation, but in every step, every word, every breath. Stillness is not reserved for the cushion or the monastery. It is woven into the fabric of your daily life. When you walk through a crowd with a quiet mind, you become a sanctuary. When you speak with calm presence, your words carry more than sound. They carry truth. This is the way of the inner temple, subtle, invisible, yet unmistakably real. Imagine someone sitting on a crowded train. All around them, chaos, chatter, motion, energy, but within them, stillness. They are not separate from the world, but they are not lost in it. They are anchored, observing, breathing, connected. They radiate a peace that touches others without words. This is how the silent ones change the world, not by shouting, but by being. And so you ask, how do I carry this stillness with me? How do I become the temple even in the storm? Begin with breath, always the breath. It is the bridge between body and spirit, between now and eternity. A single conscious breath can open the door to the sacred. With each inhale, receive presence. With each exhale, release resistance. You do not need to become calm, only to become aware of what already is beneath the surface. Bring moments of stillness into your day. A pause before you speak. A breath before you respond. A glance at the sky before you pick up your phone. These are not delays, they are returns. Each one is a small pilgrimage back to the real. Let your inner silence become a frequency, not an act. Let it vibrate through you like a sacred hum. The principle of vibration reminds us that everything moves, but it also reminds us that you can choose your frequency. And the frequency of stillness is where the divine most clearly speaks. Ask yourself now, what would it mean to live as the temple? Not to visit stillness, but to be it. This is the great work, not to escape the world, but to sanctify it from within, to make every step a prayer, every gesture an offering, every breath a return. In stillness, you become the doorway through which the universal mind enters the world. You become not just a seeker of truth, but its embodiment. You are not alone in this. The sacred silence holds all who listen. And in that silence, we are never separate. We are one. And now, as the final notes of this journey dissolve into the silence from which they came, take a moment to feel what remains. Not the words, not the ideas, but the space they pointed you toward. The soft and sacred awareness that has always lived beneath your name, beneath your roles, beneath all striving. Stillness is not a destination, it is a way of being. It is the ground beneath the path, the breath beneath the voice, the light behind the eyes. When you learn to dwell there, not just visit, you begin to move through the world differently, calmer, clearer, aligned. You speak less to be heard and more to serve. You listen not to reply, but to receive. And you live not to achieve, but to awaken. Let this be your gentle invocation. May I walk in silence even when the world is loud. May I remember who I am, even when others forget. May I live as a temple for the truth that has no name. If these words have stirred something within you, leave a trace of your own light below. Share your reflection, your silence, your remembering. And if your heart whispers, yes, subscribe or follow for more transmissions like this. But above all, carry this stillness into your life. Become the breath, the flame, the mirror. Become the silence that heals the world.